Okay, as I was saying, if you get these too close together, then it's going to merge them together. You can see, oh, well, there it goes, right here. So we don't want it too close because the new version of Maya is going to help us out in a not so helpful way. Okay, so we'll call that good. Now, I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to scale it down. It's going to grab both shells, and I need to make room for these stems. Now, when you're laying out UVs, you want to make sure you're laying them out in a way that is easy to understand, and it also gives enough space for when you're coloring on it in, say, Photoshop, which we'll get to allow for an appropriate amount of detail, which hopefully will make more sense as we do it. But for now, I need to unwrap these other two real quick here. So I'm going to control right click, two shell border, undo. I need to shift and drag over the top, deselect this other part of the stem, and now I'm going to use my tool, relax it, unfold it a little bit. Okay, I still got some overlapping going on here. So I'm going to select the entire shell, control right click, to shell, and see what this does. A lot of times you have to be very careful with how you do this. Or they just deactivated it. Okay. Doesn't even work at all anymore. Okay, so instead, let's do this. We'll shift right click and let's see, unfold UVs. Okay, that was way too helpful. So we'll undo that. Okay. Okay, when all else fails, it's actually not that hard to go in here and just move them individually. Or not. What is going on, Marty?
It's Maya. That's what it's doing.
I'm selecting the UV, and it's not moving. Oh, brother. Maybe it's because I had it smooth. Nope. Not that lucky. Okay, well, I guess I'll have to figure that out. But that's the basics of unwrapping and projecting. And now let's go ahead and we'll export a UV snapshot. So I need to select my object, UV texture editor, go to polygons, UV snapshot, and I can tell it where to save it to, call it, and what to call it here at the end. I'll call it pumpkin out UV. And you want to choose a decent size for this. 1024 is usually plenty, and it has to be square. And then I like to use a PNG and change the color value to black. By default, I think it's white. And then everything else you can leave as is. Click OK. File exists already. That's okay. I'll override it. Now, if I go into Photoshop, I'll do this real quick. Going to open this UV. In my layers menu, I'm going to add a new solid layer. Turn it white. Put this on top, and there's my UVs. Now this is only for reference. When you resave this file, then you'll want to turn those off, or they're going to end up on the surface of your model when you tell it to be shaded. So I'm going to use that for reference, and I'm going to throw on something really ugly just to be quick. So you don't want to alter this layer either. So lock it, then add a new layer, preferably underneath. And then I'm just going to fill that up, and then because this is lame. There we go. There's my texture. So I'm going to turn off my UVs. And I'm going to, the way I like to do this the best, I think works the best, is if I hit Control-Alt-Shift-S, it will save for web. And then you can use a JPEG if you're not wanting any transparency. If you want transparency, a PNG 24, and then make sure transparency is selected. I don't want any transparency. I'm going to save it. Call this pumpkin texture, or pumpkin junk texture. Save it. Go back to Maya. Now I need to assign a new material to it. If I right click on the model and go to assign new material, it's going to open up this box. I recommend you use a blend for everything, and just because it's maybe probably the most universal of all the different materials. And in the color channel, we did this once already, so I'll go kind of quick. I'm going to click on the checker box. I'm going to connect in a file node. Click on the folder to navigate to my pumpkin junk texture. Open, and there it is on my pumpkin. And it looks, the important part is that it looks a whole lot like what I think it should look like from this image. So it's predictable, and that's the whole point of using the planar projection. Obviously I could do a lot better job texturing it. You can also see that because the UVs are not laid out on the stem, at least not well, that my texture is picking up on it in a not so good way. So if I open my UV texture editor, select my model. So this image fills this square space right here, the 0 to 1 UV space is what we call it, and it repeats itself in every direction unless you tell it otherwise. That's actually something that happens in the file node. So I follow this to the file node. Actually, maybe it's in the 2D texture node. Place 2D texture. I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, that's how you lay out UVs and assign textures to hard surface models.